clear, but Sue Montgomery decided to basically confront me and try and get me arrested for breach of conditions, and it didn't work out so well for her that day. Basically made a fool of herself really in front of my camera, and the police officers who handled that complaint from Sue, I think they handled it very well. They were from PDQ 11, and basically a male officer and a female officer. I was detained while they did an investigation as to whether or not I was in breach of conditions, and they determined I was not in breach of conditions, and they set me free. So they're very polite and professional about it. I really have no complaints about how they handled that situation. Not so happy with Sue Montgomery though. She really, deliberately sought confrontation with me in an effort to provoke me. Because one of the conditions I'm under is I cannot directly communicate with her. So, she came along and she started kicking my picket signs into the street. She threw them into the street again after I set them back up again. She was deliberately trying to provoke me, probably hoping that I would say something to her, in which case I would be in breach of conditions. But I didn't say anything to her. So that's that. So what do we got here? I got a car coming this way. It's white, but I don't think it's a police car. You never know, the police may show up, it's possible. I think it's better if they don't bother, but they might get a complaint from the church and might feel the need to act on it. But we shall see what happens. Hopefully they won't even bother interfering with my protest. I don't mind if they come and have a brief, polite chat with me. It doesn't bother me at all if they want to just see what the situation is, as long as they respect my rights. I have no problem at all dealing with polite, professional SPVM police officers who respect my rights. It's the ones that don't respect my rights that I have a bit of a problem with. And unfortunately, there are a certain number of those, few too many in my opinion, too high a percentage of SPVM police officers who think it's their job to shut down a peaceful public protest against clergy abuse outside the Unitarian Church of Montreal. There's been too many occasions where SPVM police officers from PDQ 11 or sometimes PDQ 12 have come here and told me I have to leave, told me I got to go. And when I ask them why, they come up with all these ridiculous pretexts, like you can't protest in a bus stop zone, or you're blocking circulation on the sidewalk, and so on and so forth. Unfortunately, there's been a certain number of cases of that nature, but on the other hand, there's also been a certain number of cases where the police officers have come and they've upheld my rights. There's the good cops and the bad cops, I guess. It's basically good cop, bad cop. Unfortunately, there's a few too many bad cops who are, somewhat incompetent, I think would be fair to say, don't really know what they're doing, certainly don't respect charter rights and freedoms very much, and literally some of them, they literally believe it's their job to shut down the protest. They seem to believe that if they get a complaint from the church, that they are somehow obligated to prevent me from protesting, which is absolutely not the case. If anything, their job is to uphold my rights. So we shall see. It's really only as a result of Sue Montgomery's most recent, as far as I'm concerned, abuse of power, that the SPVM have involved themselves in a way that suppresses my ability to protest. And my protest definitely was suppressed to some extent anyway. Even if it's just a question of things not being clear, the Unitarian Church of Montreal was clearly named in the first conditions placed on me. It actually was put in an area that's an exemption, but this was clearly a mistake. Like, it was not it was obviously not intended to be an exemption. It was obviously Sue wanted the Unitarian Church of Montreal in the conditions. If she didn't oppose my protest outside the Unitarian Church of Montreal, she wouldn't have come and tried to get me arrested on March 18th of 2018. So it's very, very clear, but it was basically a mistake, a clerical mistake on the part of the SPVM. They wrote Unitarian Church of Montreal into an exception when it was supposed to be part of the conditions. But as I said, my lawyer was able to get that reference to the Unitarian Church of Montreal completely removed from the conditions on February 19th of last year, just over a year ago. So I resumed my protest soon afterwards. And that's when Sue came and, tried to confront me, obviously trying to get me arrested for breach of conditions and have harsher conditions placed on me, so on and so forth. So, absolutely no question that Sue Montgomery, part of her motivation for having me arrested for criminal harassment was to shut down my protest in front of the church. It was obviously also designed to prevent me from talking about her complicity in Unitarian Universalist clergy abuse cover-up efforts. Indeed, her participation in Unitarian Universalist clergy abuse cover-up efforts, as far as I'm concerned. When Sue tries to get my protest shut down by a misuse of the SPVM, well, that's an attempt to prevent the public from being aware of the situation. It's an attack on my charter rights and freedoms. When Sue literally throws my picket signs into the street, that's clearly an attempt to prevent the public from reading my picket signs. It's basically vandalism. So really no question that Sue Montgomery is a knowing and willful participant in Unitarian Universalist clergy abuse cover-up efforts, even going so far as to bring highly questionable, if not outright false, totally 100% false, like zero real grounds to have me arrested for criminal harassment. And essentially, she had me arrested for criminal harassment, not just in terms of basically having me brought to court and so on. Part of it was to have the conditions placed on me. There's no question that part of the motivation was to get the conditions placed on me that prevented me from protesting, prevented me from talking about her complicity in Unitarian Universalist clergy abuse cover-up efforts, in city council meetings and so on. And she's been successful, at least in terms of the city council meetings. My lawyer, again, was able to make it possible for me to go to city council meetings and ask questions. But Sue, somehow persuaded the police that by asking of questions at city council meetings regarding her unethical behavior, breach conditions. My lawyer doesn't think so, and from what I hear, the prosecutor doesn't think so either. So we shall see what happens with that next week. Anyhow, can't say I've seen a whole lot of people showing up for this luncheon, which is supposed to start at noon today. Pretty sure it was Wednesday the 20th at noon. But in any case, it's just good to be able to reassert my right to engage in peaceful public protest, because it has been suppressed for a little while. As I said, I voluntarily suspended my protest for all of August, September, October, November, December, and January. That was voluntary, even after Sue, brought in these conditions. I'd already voluntarily suspended my protest, and if things had continued to go well in terms of talks with the church, I wouldn't be here today. We'd still be in discussions. We'd still be working towards resolution of the conflict. But unfortunately, the church dropped the ball in a big way about 2 months ago in the 18th, 20th of December last year. They basically pretty well dropped the ball and haven't picked it up again. So we're doing a little protest here. I see a taxi arriving here, so somebody's showing up. And yeah, I did see 1 or 2 people go into the church, but not very many. But as I said, the main thing is just to reassert my right to protest, which has been successfully suppressed by Sue Montgomery as a result of what I consider to be a false accusation of criminal harassment based on some false claims as far as I'm concerned by Sue. Sue is claiming to be fearing for her personal safety. She even in her most recent deposition to the police claimed that she feared for her life, as if I'm going to murder her, which is outrageously ridiculous. I have a long history of nonviolence. Even when I've been physically assaulted by Montreal Unitarians, I have not responded with any significant violence. Hi, is that Valerie?
It is.
Yeah, just reasserting my rights here.
You never give up.
Well, Sue Montgomery tried to suppress the protest, so here we are. I don't know if you're aware of it, but I was in discussions with the church.
Oh, when was that?
Starting in October. See, the church hasn't even notified the congregation about that. They agreed to speak with me, and we had discussions October, November, December.
Yeah.
And I voluntarily suspended the protest as long as things are going well. Well, obviously they're not going well.
No, of course there was nothing in the newsletter about
No, I even told them, I said, I want you to put something in the February newsletter to tell people what's going on, and they didn't, so. So exactly, yeah. So here I am, my first protest since July. Well, there's part of the problem is Sue put a 300-meter perimeter around herself.
Yeah.
So coming on Sundays could be problematic.
Yeah.
So I came on a Wednesday. You okay there? Yeah, it's yeah, you can blame Sue for the sidewalks now. It's all her fault.
No, it's all sheer ice along.
No, that's what I'm saying. That's Sue's responsibility now. She's the mayor. And we're still recording.